Good Monday afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos. Today, across the state, flags are flying at half-staff in honor of those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. And nationwide, of course, there are thousands of events happening for Memorial Day. Here at home, the biggest event taking place at Fort Snelling. That's where over the weekend, volunteers gathered to place commemorative tokens in memory of those fallen heroes. Our Heidi Wigdahl was there.
At Fort Snelling National Cemetery, different organizations are here making sure our fallen heroes are not forgotten.
There we go.
You like that?
Every Memorial Day weekend, you can find Lynn McCoy.
Yep, Trenton McCoy.
And her daughter Adeline here.
U.S. Army, Afghanistan, loving father, husband, and son.
Specialist Trenton McCoy died nearly 7 years ago.
Trent was a gentle giant. He was 6'9" and had a huge personality and sense of humor to match.
Trent served as an Army medic with tours in Afghanistan and South Korea.
While he was serving, he did have a severe foot injury that resulted in having to have his foot amputated.
He medically retired out of the Army, and after years of surgeries and nights in the hospital, he died from complications from all his injuries after suffering from a massive stroke. Trent's death came 3 days after Adeline's second birthday.
Serving in the military was his greatest pride, that and her. I think just not forgetting why this weekend actually exists is important.
This visit, they're leaving behind something new.
The flag is on the front, the backside is, if not me, then who?
This commemorative token is being placed at graves throughout Fort Snelling as part of the Honor Project through the Travis Manion Foundation, a time where volunteers take a moment to reflect and remember fallen military heroes.
It just means to me that what Trent did, what Trent went through, isn't forgotten, that it wasn't for nothing, that people are taking the time out of their day to come and honor and celebrate him, even though they don't even know him. That really is, it's so heartwarming for our family to just know that there are people who still care.
It's not just happening here. There are about 3,000 volunteers visiting about 75 cemeteries across the country. At Fort Snelling National Cemetery, I'm Heidi Wigdahl, Kare 11 News.
Today marks 6 years since George Floyd was murdered by a Minneapolis police officer. His death, the protests and riots after, became a watershed moment, not only in the Twin Cities, but around the world. They drew massive attention to police accountability and racism. And today, at the site of his death, 38th in Chicago, the community is hosting the annual Rise and Remember event. It includes a message from George Floyd's family, a candlelight vigil, as well as live music and activities for kids. Well, take a look at this video showing the bullet holes and damage left behind from the shooting outside the White House on Saturday. The bullets hit the window of the White House History Shop. Police identified the 21-year-old shooter as Nasir Best. They say he fired dozens of rounds at a Secret Service checkpoint, and then agents returned fire, killing him. Police say Best had previous encounters with Secret Service, including making threats and entering a restricted area. A bystander was also injured and taken to the hospital. This afternoon, U.S. and Iranian leaders say they are making progress as they try to end that war, but President Trump says it will still take some time to hammer out all the details. He says the deal is mostly done, but he wants to make sure the Strait of Hormuz is open before anything is finalized. Trump did not mention any concessions on Iran's nuclear program, but Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the country will not be allowed to possess any nuclear weapons. Paying close attention to all of the developments over the last 3 months are Minnesotans with family ties to Iran. Joe McCoy checked in with them.
As the potential of the U.S. and Iran reaching a deal in the coming days intensifies,
I'm not very optimistic at this point.
Some Iranian Americans living in Minnesota are not confident about the good that will come from it.
As far as I'm concerned, the war has created a setback in terms of the Iranians' aspiration for democratic regime change.
Hamid Kashani is the co-founder of the Minnesota Committee in Support of a Democratic Iran. We first spoke with him on February 28th when the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran. Then he was hopeful this war would finally lead to a regime change in Iran, but that hope has fizzled out.
Initially, when this whole thing started, We got the message from President Trump that help is coming to Iranian people. However, since the original days of the war, that conversation has disappeared.
Negotiation is not the key for the changing this regime.
Mohammed Firouzeh, owner of Nadir Persian Restaurant, grew up in Iran and has many family members still living there.
We don't hear from family. We cannot contact them. We don't know what's going on. We don't know who is dead, who is alive.
He says the last few months have been very frustrating as he feels no progress has been made to help the Iranian people as the regime there continues to arrest and kill protesters.
These are criminals. These are against humanity. They don't like anybody except themselves. Please, Mr. President Trump, please help us to get rid of this regime.
The idea of any form of negotiation or settlement with the regime without the consideration for what happens to the Iranian people is a complete failure as far as we are concerned.
Tomorrow morning, striking Chisago County workers are expected back on the picket line after an 18-hour mediation session failed early Saturday morning. The strike is now on day 23. The union, which represents nearly 200 health and human services and government center employees, says workers are concerned about workplace conditions and a pattern of higher health insurance costs. Chisago County has previously said they have offered the union a competitive package. Well, today we are expecting a busy day of travel as Americans return home from Memorial Day celebrations, but severe weather is impacting roads and airports across the country. NBC's Priscilla Thompson has more from Houston.
Yeah, already across the country today, there have been more than 600 delays and more than 100 cancellations amid this stormy start to summer. We saw over the weekend dramatic images of lightning and thunder in Alabama, funnel clouds swirling in the Texas Panhandle, and just rain everywhere, stretching from the Gulf Coast to the Northeast. And in fact, some of that becoming dangerous. In West Virginia, there were a group of Boy Scouts that actually had to be rescued after becoming trapped on a riverbank. I spoke to the man who called for help, and he said that there were boys who were in the water. Thankfully, firefighters say that they were all rescued safely, but certainly some scary moments there. And we've seen people driving through those floodwaters in some areas. In Ohio, folks having abandoned cars having to be recovered. There was also in Michigan a 18-wheeler that jackknifed. So certainly some scary stuff to watch on the roads. And for folks who are going to be getting out on the road today to head home, I will tell you that AAA says the best time to leave before 10 a.m. and the worst time to leave is going to be noon to 5 p.m. So be careful if you're sticking around too late for the cookout. Back to you.
Now, over in California, the risk of a catastrophic explosion involving a chemical tank has been eliminated. Authorities say the crack in the tank is releasing pressure and the temperature is dropping, bringing the risk of a blast down. However, officials say the danger still persists. Authorities do continue to monitor that situation. The tank at the aerospace facility in Orange County holds highly flammable chemicals used to produce resins and plastics. It first started overheating on Thursday, raising concerns of a devastating blast or a possible chemical leak.
We still have potential for an explosion. That is not as bad as a levee, but it's still a threat. We need the public to keep to those evacuation zones until we deem it safe for them to come back.
About 50,000 people were ordered to leave their homes inside the potential blast zone. As of this afternoon, the evacuation order does remain in place. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.